This is three full-time jobs. I mean, this is
Mhm.
beyond a full-time job. Content creation for my business would be a full-time job if I had that capacity. And yeah, I can hire someone to help me with it, but I've also found that when you start to hire things out, like you have to be very careful to not lose the personal touch because like
Mhm.
people aren't just looking for like, random like sales posts on social media. And it's very hard to find somebody that can speak in your voice or who like knows your stories or so it's like, yeah, you can hire someone to do some of the stuff for you, but like, are they going to do it in a way that's still like authentic to you?
If you want to make more sales without the pressure to post on social media, I made this podcast specifically for you. I'm Leslie Stevens, and this is the Not an Influencer, an Impact Maker podcast, where we talk about other organic marketing strategies to bring more clients into your online business and the stories of the incredible entrepreneurs who are using these strategies in their businesses every day to create success. You do not have to be an influencer to be an impact maker and build a successful online business. Today, we get to chat with Laura. Laura, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So my name's Laura Ericson, and I have a travel business where I take people on off the beaten path group trips and have culturally immersive experiences through travel.
So, how did you get started doing this?
Um, well, the somewhat shorter version of the story is that I worked in higher education for 14 years and loved my job, but after the pandemic, I just wasn't really feeling fulfilled anymore. I didn't really want to be chained to a desk and working in an office, and I wanted to travel more. And I also found I got a divorce in 2016. And after that, when I decided I wanted to prioritize travel, I found that there wasn't really a whole lot of people to travel with. Um,
Mhm.
Being a single female in my late 30s, I didn't have kids. It's really, really challenging to find other people who can align their schedules or have the same budget or want to go to the same places. So I didn't want to go alone. Being a female traveler, I wanted to travel with people. And so I went on a trip to Colombia. I found a girl on a Facebook group who said she was willing to go with me if I planned the trip. And
Mhm.
so we did that, and it was an amazing experience. And I told her, I have this kind of crazy idea to start a business and make this my job where I plan the trips and take people to these places that maybe they wouldn't normally go. And I do all the planning and all the coordinating, and people just kind of get to show up and experience. And that was kind of where the idea started. And so in fall of 2021, I put in my 30 days notice, quit my job, and my first group trip was a group of four women to Mexico City for Day of the Dead. And it kind of just went from there.
It sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
What a great way to kind of develop a business out of the things that you want, because there are other people out there who want it. Sometimes we feel like we're so alone, and then we're like, what if we put it out there and something comes of it, and then I can live the life that like I really want to live. So, how did you come up with like going to places that are off the beaten path?
It's something I personally just kind of always gravitated towards. I don't love like over tourism and like mainstream tourism. And I've been to a lot of like the big popular cities in the world. And while they're great, I find that they are so overpopulated, and sometimes not as authentic as some of the other places that you can go where there aren't as many tourists. I personally just prefer to like be surrounded by locals when I'm traveling, not by other people like me, because I feel like that kind of dilutes your experience. That and I was just always naturally have gravitated towards countries like Turkey and Colombia and Morocco and Cuba and like the places that honestly, when I tell people I'm going there, they're kind of like, ooh, like, why are you going there?
Hmm.
Um, and what I've found though is that when I started sharing my travels with people about with these places, they were like, "Wow!" Like I had absolutely no idea that that's what Turkey looked like. I always thought Turkey was, like a war zone or something. People have these ideas in their mind of what these places look like, and it's most of the time not reality. And so I
Mhm.
kind of made it my mission because it's what I'm personally interested in, to share these places with other people and get them kind of on board to come check out some things that are different, that aren't the typical London, Paris, Madrid type circuit that people do when they want to go to Europe or whatever. So getting people just to like consider other options that go beyond what's kind of always in front of you and what's seemingly easy and seemingly safe,
Mhm.
because people have these perceptions of what is safe and what isn't, and usually that's not reality. So that's kind of where it started. And then, as I traveled, I realized I could do more with my business than just taking people on vacation. So I've really made it in the last, 6 months to a year, my mission to like give back through travel and teach people about opportunities to do more while you're traveling in these countries, and make sure that we're giving our money to the local economy, to local guides, and making sure that the money that is being spent in these countries is staying in these countries.
That's so incredible and that's so intentional. And I think that's what really makes a difference between kind of like travel agencies and what you do, because what you're doing has such a mission behind it and such a purpose. And I love that. So when you started this, were there any barriers that you started to like come up against that you had no idea were going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, tons of them, and I still have them all the time. I mean, yeah, it was rough when I started. Like, I'm not gonna lie, quitting your job and going from that safety net that you have when you have like a really good, cushy job with,
Mhm.
you're guaranteed a paycheck and you're guaranteed insurance and all of these other things. Like, just leaving that to kind of the unknown of not knowing like what's gonna happen next, or am I gonna be able to make a sale? Is anybody gonna actually go on these trips? Like that was probably like the biggest challenge. Like I said, my first trip was 4 people.
Mhm.
Um, my second trip, which was to Turkey in early 2022, like I had 6 people on it. And then my next one was Vancouver, Canada, and I had 8 people. And then my next one was Colombia, and I had 10 people. And then
Mhm.
by the time I had done a full year and I repeated that same Mexico City trip, that one was sold out like far in advance with 14 people. And so I always tell people that because I think people look at me and they think it was like an overnight success, and that I just instantly like just decided to start a business, and everything just happened, and that's
Mhm.
probably how it looks from the outside, but in reality there's been so many struggles.
Well, I think I mean, that's the most important thing to share with people. And that's my whole intention of doing this featured series on the podcast, is because people typically only share, or people only look when people have reached that success or what people define as success, and they don't see all of the steps that you have to put in place before it. So when you start taking those risks, when you get out of your 9 to 5 and cushy job and you start slowly and you build it up one client at a time, 2 more people on a trip every time, those small little progress steps, that is what success is made of. And that's what people need to know. Like, you can do the hard things, you can take the risks, because would you say it was worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my big thing when I was like, do I do this or do I not do it? And I was going to do it part-time at first and just kind of see how it goes. And I realized really quickly I kind of had to make a choice. Like I could kind of like again live in this like safety net while I try to, dabble in another world, but
Mhm.
I found like it's kind of one or the other. You have to kind of go all in on your business. You can try to sample some things and see if you think it's going to work. And I'm not saying just quit your job and start a business without a plan, but at some point you kind of just have to like go all in and like commit and have faith that you're going to make it work no matter what. And like you said, like people see the highlight reel, especially with social media, and I get that all the time. People are like, oh my God, you're doing so well. Like, this just worked so well for you. Everything's just so amazing. I love your life. Like, I get that, but like, my life is really hard. And this journey was very, very difficult, and it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Can you maybe share some examples of like a certain challenge that you faced that you really had to like put your head down and overcome that to get where you're at today?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of it is mindset, to be honest. Like, I still have. my doubt, I still doubt myself all the time, or doubt whether I can find enough people to go on a trip. I
Mhm.
certainly have come a long way to building, an email list and a following on social media and all, different like avenues of finding leads and clients, but that doesn't mean people are going to buy from you. And so every time I'm putting out a trip, it's kind of like, okay, is this going to be something people want? Am I offering it at the time that they want? You just never really know. And I've had trips that, fill slowly. I have trips that don't fill at all. And then I most recently like did a launch for my Cuba trip and it sold in 33 minutes. So I mean,
Mhm.
I've had the huge wins and I've had the huge losses and I still experience some of that. It's not like everything I do just sells instantly and it's just easy. And when things don't sell, that's where I personally like start like, okay, like maybe I'm doing the wrong thing or, maybe nobody wants to go with me. Like I still have all those doubts too. And again, it comes back to mindset. Like I told myself a long time ago that my biggest thing with this is not quitting. I feel
Mhm.
like it's super easy to give up when things are hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly, like they say, like that's why most businesses fail is because people give up when it gets hard. When they run into roadblocks or challenges, they're just like, like this wasn't meant for me. I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5 or whatever. And I see a lot of people doing that. I knew a lot of people who kind of started different businesses around the same time as me, and a lot of those people don't have businesses anymore. And from an outside perspective, when I look at that, like the only common denominator that I see is that they gave up. They just kind
Yeah.
of went like, oh, this didn't work instantly the way that I thought it would, and so I'm just gonna like stop. I told myself like I'm not gonna stop no matter what. Like I'm gonna have hard days. I'm gonna cry sometimes. I do that a lot. Not as much now as in the beginning, but I mean, I just told myself like I'm not giving up. I'm just gonna keep going, and eventually, I feel like that persistence has paid off.
Yeah. And when you make not giving up like an absolute, that gives you more opportunities because then when that's not even in the picture, you're like, okay, well then I better figure out a way to make it work. And
Yeah.
there when you're running your own business, I feel like no matter what level you're at, you're going to have some things that might not sell or some things that are going to sell more quickly. I know people with $1 million businesses who try launching in a different way, even if it's a program that they ran or trying a different version of ads and it just doesn't work. And that's part of the process. You're
Yep.
still learning and progressing by figuring out the things that aren't working because then over time, all of those things are just giving you data on what's
Yep.
going to work better in the future. And it's going to allow you to make better decisions as you go on. And it's that kind of trial and error tenacity that you have to have as an entrepreneur to be willing to take those risks and still keep going.
Yep. You definitely have to have a thick skin. And I've had even like business coaches who are like, do you just want to give up? Like, do you just want to stop? And they were saying that like seriously. And I was like, I can't believe you're even asking me that as
That
my
makes me
coach.
so
Like, I'm
upset
like,
for you.
yeah, it's like just because I'm having a rough day or like a rough patch or a rough period doesn't mean I'm giving up. Like, we're allowed to have hard times as business owners. And like you said, I think the most successful business owners still have hard times and hard days. And I hear that all the time from people who I think are doing amazingly well. And they
Mhm.
they talk about how they get into these funks or they have a period of struggle. And like I think I've realized like that's very normal and it's okay. And it's like you're gonna get through it. Like there's highs and lows. It's not just one upward path of success for people. And so yeah, the biggest thing is to just keep trying, see what works, see what doesn't, do more of what works. I've had trips where I'm like, I love this trip, but like other people right now don't seem to want to go on it. So I'm gonna table this for a little bit and I'll bring it back. Like when I feel like the demand is there again. And that happened with Turkey, for example. Like really hard to get people to go to Turkey in 2021 because of the pandemic. And now people are like, when are you offering another Turkey trip? Like when are you going to Turkey? So um sometimes it's timing. Like I think the
Mhm.
biggest thing is to not take it personally, especially in like sales. Like just because when I'm starting a new business, like a year ago when I was doing, or a year and a half ago when I was doing turkey, I didn't have like nearly the amount of like leads and connections that I have now. So just because something didn't do well a year and a half ago doesn't mean like it won't do well in the future. So I've had to like really try hard to not take those things personally and just like take, like you said, accept the data of it and like take points and strategize and figure out like what's going to work and what isn't. And, maybe this will be something that'll work about better in a year when I have more people. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that has been the biggest thing is just to like learn and take the data and figure out what works and kind of do more of it.
Yeah, and it all takes time. I think that's another thing that's projected to us kind of in the social media realm is like, do this in 30 days, do this in 60 days, do this in a like 1 quarter or something like that. So we think we're in this race against time to create the success. And when people don't create that success so quickly, they feel like failures or they feel like they can't do this because they were expecting those results. And it takes time to curate an audience of the right people. And maybe when you first started, you weren't necessarily in front of the right people, but it's because you're taking the time to get in front of the right people, make the right connections, that when you offer that trip again, that could sell out in 33 minutes, you know? And
Right.
that's the process that I want people to know going into entrepreneurship is getting in front of the right people takes a little bit of time. And that's okay. That's a natural part of the process. And you need to give yourself space to let that
Yeah.
evolve.
Yeah. And I would say, when I first started, I was kind of sold an unrealistic expectation of how things would go. And so, and I didn't know that at the time. So like when things didn't go that way, I immediately like went to like, okay, I suck at this. Like maybe I wasn't meant for this. I'm failing.
Mhm.
When now in retrospect, when I look back like 2 years later, I'm like that wasn't true. I was just kind of full like sold something that isn't real. Like there is no quick success. There is no clear path to success. Anybody who is selling you that is probably full of shit, if I'm being honest. You have to try lots of different things and see what works. And I've had lots of people who are like, if you do this, like this is what's going to happen, and and it doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah.
And so you have to just keep trying. Like you have to be like, okay, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't, but also realize like it's going to be a process. It's not going to be an overnight success. That just doesn't happen for most people. But when you see those people who kind of sell it in that way, or like even they sell their own journey as like, I just had this instant,
Yeah.
blow up of success, they're probably not telling the whole truth, and they're probably not sharing all of those other things that it took to get there. And I as an entrepreneur get frustrated when I see that because I'm just like, that's not real. Like that's
Yeah.
not nobody has like that instant just like perfect success. It just doesn't really happen. It takes so much hard work, and it's kind of like cheapening the the experience that entrepreneurs go through to get there. And I think especially with something like travel, you can look at my life or you can look at my Instagram and be like, "Oh wow, like must be nice to be her." And it's like this took a lot of hard work, and it still does. This isn't something that just like happens. I work more hours than most people that I know, and like people have to be able to be willing to invest and put in all that time and money, like the amount of money that goes back into my business.
Yeah.
It's not just about making money. You have to be willing to invest in coaching. You have to be willing to invest in marketing. You have to be willing to put a ton of money right back into your business. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to like take the money and keep going. And it's like, it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot more to it than those flashy numbers of, oh, I made 10K months or I'm making 50K months, all those things that you see. And the coaches that I have actually ended up working with will sell you, when you're first getting started, you want the guidance and they'll sell, like you said, the unrealistic kind of results. And then you get to really know them and their story. And usually they have a few businesses that they've tried or they've
Yep.
had a few years before they had that, oh, I made this in 30 days. It's like, okay, well, if you know somebody is just starting their business, is that method really going to work with them? So,
Right.
and that is so unique to every business, the process that you take to really grow your business and scale, that's going to be so unique to you and your skills and your business and your ideal audience that I think my whole perspective on coaching changed after a few years. And it was not following one specific path or what one person was saying. It was looking to see what aligned with me and my business, what tactics were actually giving me results instead of what felt good or what looked good. If I
Yep.
posted it somewhere, something like that, and started implementing the things that worked and just let go of the rest.
Yep.
And that's really
Absolutely.
hard to do while you're growing your confidence in your business, but it's also essential because you don't
Yep.
want to set yourself up to feel like a failure all the time. And if you're following somebody else's path, that might not be the right path for you, but that's okay. You can still learn what works and what
Yep.
doesn't. That I think
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And I'll say right now, I have three coaches I work with for different things. And
Mhm.
that's because one person, like you said, like doesn't give me everything that I need. And sometimes I'll get coached on something and I'm kind of like, hmm, like I appreciate that, but that doesn't work for me. And I think you really do have to like stand your ground and know what I don't think anyone knows your business as well as you. And you have to kind of like stand firm in that sometimes. Like you can take all the advice you want, but and you kind of take and leave what works for you because people can give you all it's no different than like your friends giving you advice about something, like sometimes you listen or you always listen, but sometimes you take it and you apply it and sometimes you're like, I appreciate that, but that's not what I'm going to do because it's my life and it's my business and I'm ultimately the decision maker and you have to like kind of have a strong backbone in that. I sometimes equate it to like I studied to be a teacher and like as I was listening to other teachers, like sometimes I watched what they did and I'm like, oh my God, I'm absolutely never gonna do that. Like that's exactly what not to do, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes those lessons are what you learn that are equally valuable to like the things that you should be doing. And same thing like when I had a boss, like I worked in leadership. And so like as I was learning to be a leader, I would watch other leaders and I would take what I liked and I would apply those things and sometimes the things that I didn't like. It's sometimes those I'm not doing this, those types of lessons can be equally valuable. So I really do think it is about like applying what works for you and what you feel is gonna um, get you to where you need to be, but you also don't have to, like you said, follow someone else's path because their path is never going to be the same as yours, even if they're doing exactly what you're doing, which in my case, it's never the case. So I have to be even more, I have to be even more diligent about like, okay, yep, that worked in your business, but your business is this and my business is this. So I have to kind
Mhm.
of like, I have to be the decision maker. They say like entrepreneurship is like you don't get there's not a lot of things that like help you get to know yourself better than being an entrepreneur.
That's
Um,
so true.
and I really have had to learn to like trust my gut and listen to my intuition and take what works for me and kind of leave the rest.
Hmm. Yeah, that's all so true. So, what's the best piece of business advice that you've gotten throughout your journey?
Oh gosh. Um, Let me think about that. I would say it really does come down to like trusting yourself and doing what's right for you and
Mhm.
not you have to kind of weed through all the noise because there's a lot of like watching what other people I try not to watch what other people are doing or compare myself to other people because that is where you start to get in your head and you're like, oh, they're doing better than me or I'm not where they are. I'm not like that person. And I try really hard to not like I've unfollowed people on social media for that reason because it just doesn't make me feel good and it makes me feel like I'm not where they're at and like that's not helpful for me. So
Mhm.
I would say like just trying not to compare yourself too much to other people because as I've like kind of developed like what my own business is, like the more I've done that, the less I care about what other people are doing because they're not doing what I'm doing. And I don't want to even be influenced by what other people are doing. Like I want to just go on my path and do my thing if I need inspiration, I can look, or if I want to look at someone's profile and see what they're up to, I can. But I don't need like someone else's stuff kind of in
Yeah.
my periphery all the time because I just feel like that doesn't usually help you.
Yeah, putting your blinders on and just getting to work. And that can be difficult, especially at the beginning when you're looking for that inspiration, when you're looking for the right path. But over time you will develop that, and I think that's something that you have to be mindful of what as well. You have to like curate your environment. Like you said, you unfollowed people. I've done that too, just so that I don't end up in that place of comparison, so that I don't accidentally slip into mindlessly comparing myself to something that one I know is probably not true for some people. And I'm like, but it looks like they're doing this, but I know they're not. So
Right.
it's this weird little world that we get to be a part of with social media, and kind of
Absolutely.
getting that input all of the time. So be intentional with what you're letting into your world, and then allow that space and time for you to build that trust for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And often what I've found is like the people that maybe like initially inspired me 2 years ago, now I'm kind of like, like that's great.
Yeah.
Like they're on their journey. I'm doing something completely different. And like that we can both exist in the world and like there's enough people to go around for everybody. And I almost feel like sometimes it's like that comparison game. Like I've realized I'm like, we're not even doing the same things anymore. Like their business is this and my business is this, and I'm on a different path. And it, it doesn't even really help me to like see what other people are doing because I pride myself kind of on doing my own thing. I've always kind of been that person that I beat to my own drum. And so I don't even want to be like influenced sometimes by what other people are doing. I'd rather just like focus on what I want to be doing. And, like nobody wants to be a copycat anyway. Like you don't want to be looking at someone else's business and doing everything they're doing because
Yeah.
that's not really being an entrepreneur. Then you're not really being creative and thinking of your own things. You're just kind of doing and I see a lot of people doing that. They just like start copying what someone else is doing because they think, oh, well, they're successful, so I'm going to do the exact same thing and be successful too. And that generally just doesn't work because it's not personal and
Yeah.
it's not something you've created. You're just like copying what someone else has done. And that just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah. You get to be so creative as an entrepreneur. I think it's like that creative application of all the tactics and the strategies and the things that you learn from different people and different coaches and things like that. And I think that's where it gets to be really fun. I think where a lot
Mm-hmm.
of entrepreneurs get stuck, it's like, oh, I'm not finding success from this path. I can't do this. And it's
Yeah.
not that. It's like, okay, well, if this strategy isn't working, how can I be creative about the way I apply it or find a different way to get this result and all those things? And when I started to look at that as like having fun and getting to be creative, that is where like everything kind of lit up for me, and it started being exciting instead of felt like school, like I was trying to learn something and do my homework well. It was like, okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
experiment. Let's find out what's really going to work for me and what gets to be fun.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm just, like I said, I'm really like technically like 2 years in from when I like officially like just got my LLC and started a business. I really didn't like launch my business for till like a few months later. But when I first started, like I kind of knew what I was doing, but like most entrepreneurs, you don't know it all and it evolves and that's okay. It should evolve and change. Your business should change and
Mhm.
evolve. And it's only in, like I said, the last 6 months where I've become very like crystal clear on what my mission is and what I want to do. And, I'm right now, I'm in the process of launching like a new positive impact page on my website where I'm talking about like really like I said, the heart and soul of my business and like why I'm doing it and what these trips mean to me. And like, I didn't have that messaging 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I might have like felt it, but I didn't know how to communicate it. I wasn't clear on my vision. And you can say, yeah, when you start a business, like you should be clear on all of that and you should have a business plan. But most people, when they start a business, like you're just figuring it out. You're figuring it out as you go. it's going to change, it's going to evolve. And so like I said, I'm 2 years in and now I'm kind of like, okay, like now I'm onto something. Now I know what I'm doing. And I'm at a place where now I can do more with my business than I could have done 2 years ago. And that's, another thing is like you can't do it all, especially
Yeah.
at the start. Like I put so much pressure on myself to like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Like I have so many ideas, like I have so many things I want to do, but you can't, especially when you're a solo entrepreneur, like you can't do it all. So you have to really prioritize like what am I doing right now? Like what am I planning to do in the next year? And you have to baby step it because like if you try to be good at everything, that's where you're probably going to fail because like you have to like focus on one thing at a time and that takes time to develop. It's not going to happen instantly.
Yeah, you definitely have to kind of respect where you're at in business. If you're just getting started and people are trying to teach you the strategies that they use when they have a team of 10 people and they've been in business for 5, 10 years, those strategies aren't necessarily going to work in your business. So it's looking at, okay, where am I right now? And what is going to get me to where the next step? Not where I want to be in 10 years, but okay, I am
Right.
here right now. What's going to get me that next step down the path that I'm creating? And usually that's a lot harder in the beginning because people aren't telling you all of that messy middle stuff. And that's actually why I do what I do, because I wish somebody would have told me that messy middle stuff. I wish somebody would have told me, don't try and build an audience on Instagram first and spend hours every day trying to create content. Just start talking to people. Just start having more
Mm-hmm.
conversations, because if I would have started there, I would have built my clientele more quickly.
Yep.
But it's those strategies I was trying to follow from people who were 5, 10 years down the line, and I was trying to do 10 different things at once. And I was like, I learned it the hard way. I don't want everyone to have to learn it the hard way. So I'm here to tell the full story.
Yeah, for sure. And like, because of what my business is, I am on social media, but I will say
Mhm.
like it is not the only thing. And I'm also like personally, I'm not a social media person. I've learned like I have to do it to, like it's the way the world is, but I've not put all my eggs in that basket. Like
Mhm.
I have lots of different ways to get leads and the most powerful thing that I have found success with is face to face, like meeting people, having relationships and connections with people who then tell other people. It's that like word of mouth. Yeah, do I find people on Instagram or Facebook or whatever? Yes, but I have had probably the most success with like the people who honestly, like people always say like, you can't ever, or Facebook is dead. This is a thing I hear a lot.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, but Facebook, when I started, like I think I have like 3,000 followers on Facebook, but when I started, it was just like my friends and family. Like those are the people that have been following my journey from day one, who've been telling people like, "Hey, I know this girl I went to high school with who you should travel with," or, I know this person from whatever reason, like you should go with her. And I've even found like 2 years later, like people that they're like, "Hey, I've been following your journey now for 2 years. I'm like, I'm going to go on one of your trips." Like that's the other thing is like some of this stuff isn't quick. Like this journey to a sale, especially in what I work in, like I always say I'm not selling a t-shirt. Like the
Mhm.
the decision making process for buying a $20 t-shirt is very different than someone agreeing to give up 10 days of their precious like vacation time to invest in a trip that costs thousands of dollars to go travel with a stranger. Like
Yeah.
that's a completely different journey and decision making journey than someone that's just like, oh, I like that, I'm going to buy it. Like it's very low risk, right? So it's taken time to like nurture that audience and develop relationships with people to the point where they're like, I've been like I said, people will say I've been watching you for 2 years and like now I'm finally ready to go on a trip with you. So you also
Mhm.
have to realize like people might not be talking back to you, but it doesn't mean they're not listening or watching or reading or following.
Yes, absolutely. That's so important. When I had my health coaching business, I had it for 4 years, and I only started to notice who's actually watching after I stopped posting. And people would be like, "Where did you go?" And I was like, "Well, I
Yeah.
didn't know anybody was watching." And they were
Yeah.
like, "But I watched what you posted." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, That's information I never even realized was happening. But now, like you said, it's not something that you depend on getting clientele from. And I think that's the main distinction is a lot of people try and just post on social media and they think they're going to get clients from that. But it's the relationships that you build out of it, and it's the connections, and then the word of mouth, and all of those things build up. And then you can, and like social media marketing is a fantastic tool, but you just don't have to have that pressure to be posting every single day and running a business, because it's like, are you a content creator or are you business owner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
and oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you take on both of those roles when you're starting a business, it's two different jobs, and you've got a ton of things to do. And it's like, okay, again, respect where you are in business. What's going to get you clients the quickest?
Absolutely. And like I very much struggle with that because I have sometimes people will say to me like, "Oh, wait, so like this is like your full-time job?" And I'm like, "This is three full-time jobs. I mean, this is
Mhm.
beyond a full-time job. Content creation for my business would be a full-time job if I had that capacity." And yeah, I can hire someone to help me with it, but I've also found that when you start to hire things out, like you have to be very careful to not lose the personal touch because like
Mhm.
people aren't just looking for like, random like sales posts on social media. And it's very hard to find somebody that can speak in your voice or who like knows your stories or so it's like, yeah, you can hire someone to do some of the stuff for you, but like are they going to do it in a way that's still like authentic to you that people are going to resonate with? Because I've had people who tell me they're like, I can tell somebody else wrote that for you, or I can tell like that wasn't you because that's not something that you would do or like that you would post. So I
Mhm.
think you have to be also like it's hard when you expand and you're trying to bring people on to help you. You want to still make it sure like I have a personal brand, so like you want to make sure that it still is feeling like authentic and personal and that people aren't all of a sudden just like, wait a minute, like who
Who
what's
did?
going on here? Like this is not like what I originally signed up for.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge with social media because a lot of people I think they do farm it out to somebody else. And
Mhm.
then that's where you get that kind of like generic content that isn't the same thing that like people resonate with. Like I think for me, what has resonated on social media the most is when I share my story authentically or I just share like what I'm doing in a very like authentic way and I'm not doing it with strategy and I'm
Yeah.
not doing it with intent to sell. I'm just, like posting what I'm doing or sharing, like telling a quick story or just sharing my thoughts and feelings. Like one of the things that I did that I had no intention of like anyone even responding to was like last year, it was like all of a sudden I realized it was the 5 year anniversary of my divorce. And I never talked publicly about my divorce. I went through a very challenging time and I was very private about it. And it sometimes took years for people to even realize that I was divorced because I didn't announce it. I didn't change my name. Like I was very private
Mhm.
about it. And so like, and now it's like I'm on this platform and I don't really like want to share my personal
Yeah.
life, but I did a blog post about like 5 years post divorce, like just kind of reflecting back on what I went through and how difficult it was and like where I'm at now. And that resonated so deeply with so many people who messaged me. And I got so much response from it because they were like, I'm going through this too, or I've been through it. And like, thank you for sharing. Because it's not easy to share those things. It's not something I enjoy sharing, to
Yeah.
be perfectly honest. But like, it made me realize like there's a lot of people out there who can benefit from you just sharing your story authentically if you have the courage to do so. And it wasn't about sales and it wasn't even about my trips. And
Mhm.
now I get people who sign up for my trips and they say, I saw your divorce blog or I saw your divorce post and I saw your story and I've been following your journey and like I want to travel post divorce because that's kind of my message is like there's life after divorce. My life changed dramatically after divorce and I did something amazing with it instead of like focusing on, oh my God, my life is over because I'm no longer with this person, which I feel like a lot of people get very stuck in.
Mhm.
But sharing that story is what has slowly, like, honestly transitioned into me making more sales and my business growing. But it has to come from like a very genuine, authentic place.
I think focusing more on making the things that you do in business meaningful over just doing more things. So like making a few posts that are really meaningful instead of trying to post every single day or follow somebody's
Yep.
strategy that's like post 10 stories a day so you stay at the top of people's feeds or something like that. It's the meaningfulness behind everything. So it's like when you do grow your business, like you said, it's a personal brand and it's about putting you and your message out there. And when you make it so authentic, that's what people are so attracted to. And I love what you do. I love your message. Can you share with everybody where they can find you to connect with you and possibly go on a trip?
Yeah, my website is lauraericson.com. I always say there's no K in Erickson because people are listening and can't see my name. So it's Ericson. Also, I'm on Instagram as Lola Whiskey. Facebook, I'm on there as, I think you can find me by my name, Laura Ericson. Otherwise, I also have a Facebook travel group for women only. My trips are co-ed, but I have some women only trips and I have a women only Facebook group. And that is called Lola Loves Travel if anybody wants to join that.
Perfect. And the links will be in the description so you can just head over there right now and connect with all those incredible women. Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie.
What if I told you there was a way to get more leads in your online business without having to post on social media? That's something you'd want to know more about, right? Well, you can learn exactly that in my free training, where I will teach you how to leverage simple conversations to turn strangers into paying clients, as well as how to borrow other people's audiences to build your authority, credibility, and connect with new potential clients, as well as how to make sales simple and easy. Click the link in the description or go to clientconnectionmethod